Bienvenidos sean todos ustedes a esta transmisión en la cual vamos a platicar en estos sensacionales palomazos acerca de distintos proyectos. And tonight, yes, the rest of the show is going to be in English. El resto del show va a ser en inglés. I am delighted to present you the people that are behind one of the most interesting projects that is going to be presented in the next emission of the Guadalajara International Film Festival, el Festival Internacional de Cine en Guadalajara. In one of the sections, the Premio Maguey is going to be competing for this award. And we are really glad because we have with us the director and the producer, Mak CK and Román Rangel. How are you guys doing?
Great. Hi, Dan.
Hey, always a pleasure, Dan.
It's a real pleasure for me having you both in here, especially, as I mentioned before, because we're going to talk about one documentary that is going to be competing in one section. So the audience has an idea about what's this documentary about. Mac, can you tell us a little bit about what is the main story behind One Taxi Ride? Un viaje en taxi in Spanish.
Sure. It's about a man who is called Eric. When I met him a few years ago, almost 4 years ago, he was 27 years old. And he shared a secret with me, which he hasn't shared to anyone else in this world, not to his family, not to his friends. He was raped after taking a taxi one night after his birthday when he was 17 years old. So this film is about Eric's journey to reclaim his life, because for the 10 years before he met me, his life has been completely devastated. He hasn't been well emotionally, physically, and mentally. So this film is about the journey of a male rape survivor who tries to accept himself, tries to get his loved ones to accept him, and tries to get society to accept what happened to him.
Mm-hmm. And when we're looking at some of the parts of the trailer right now at my right, where you're seeing it there, and we go in a journey where we met obviously different parts of this story. Obviously the main characters, the family, some of the different parts of this puzzle that we have in here. Roman, one question for you. When you got in touch with this project, what was one of the things that for you were more like revealing, one of the parts that you found more like interesting about the development of this story?
Well, actually, it was when I met Mac about 4 years ago. Actually, through Documenta, because he came to Querétaro. He spoke to me a little bit about the project. That it wasn't really a project at the time. It was just that he met Eric. So he told me that story, but he didn't know it really, or at least I don't think he knew it was going to be a feature-length documentary. It was just like, he didn't know if he wanted to interview him, to have like an interview, to have like a short film. But he just told me the story basically about Eric, and basically that there hasn't really been a documentary about this subject, about male rape, because it's something that's taboo. So when he was telling me that story, I was really, really interested for Eric. And then he started to give me a little bit more info on the people around Eric. So when he spoke to me about his brothers, about his mother, the whole issue with his dad, the issue with his boyfriend at the time, I was like hooked on it. I was just like, wow, that's a great story. And then I just saw a little bit of like a rough cut of the film. And I basically told him that if there was anything that I could do to help out with the project, I was really interested, because I thought there has not really been a film like this. So I wanted to help him. And my job at first was just to create this special screenings for the film that basically is going to be like the epilogue of what we see in the final cut of the film. So I helped him with that. And then, well, we started growing and I was more and more interested. So I just wanted to help out in any way. And I didn't even meet Eric until recently. So that was like my involvement with the film at that particular point.
All right. And it's kind of an interesting ride. Mac, we're going back with you. And for example, what were some of the parts that you found more rewarding while tackling this difficult topic? Because as Roman mentioned, It's one topic that seems to perhaps don't attract. It's a topic that doesn't attract a lot of attention, and as he mentioned, it's sort of taboo. So while you were doing the research and while you were doing in this case the filming, the proper development of the documentary, what were some of perhaps of the difficult parts, Mac, and perhaps some of the most rewarding parts in this process?
There are so many, Dan. You know, every time in the last 4 years when I met people in Mexico, you know, socially, they ask me what I'm doing in Mexico. I tell them about the film. And a common reaction, and this is not an exaggeration, is that people laugh. You know, that's the first thing they do, they laugh. And then they get slightly uncomfortable. And I think because people don't understand it, they think that a man wants to have sex, and when he has sex, he only does it because he wants it. So the concept that a man can be raped, it's very, very foreign to men, to women, to gay men, to straight men, you know, through my experience. And I think that was a very big challenge in trying to find financing, find funding for the film. If it's a subject that nobody thinks is a real problem, how do you attract money to make the film if people don't think it's a real problem? So that's one huge challenge. And another challenge of making this film is that, you know, it's a very challenging situation for me because I have to make sure that when we make this film, Eric's emotional and mental safety is paramount. You know, it's key. So while making this film, I think I decided very early on that there wouldn't be an interview or any interview where I asked Eric about what happened the night he was attacked and raped. I decided to make this film in a more organic way. So it's an observational film. So I literally just follow him with a camera. And when he chooses to share his story and his past to people in his life, that's when I learn about what happened exactly. And I remember the first time when he told someone in the film what happened, I started to cry because I heard every detail that happened that night. And I just felt that it is such a powerful story. And if I managed to do this film justice by telling his story in a very honest way, hopefully we can overcome these challenges and allow audiences to realize that it is a problem. It is not a problem isolated to a certain community or a certain demographic. Research in North America and the US and UK have shown that in 10 rape cases, one or at least one of them, the man is the victim, is the survivor. So it is a huge problem. It is not limited to Latin America or Mexico. It is not limited to the US or the UK. The only reason we only have statistics and data from many Western countries is because these societies have started to collect data because they believe it's a problem. So for many parts of the rest of the world, there's still a lot of work to be done, first in recognizing that it's a problem, and then we can begin to figure out how we can provide resources and deal with this social problem.
I see, and for example, this at least in the case of Mexico, we had some problems recently because this is one of the situations or the problems that usually, as you mentioned, it's being ignored, and if somebody's also taking perhaps some responsibility about facing the consequences and trying to help the people who has been in this kind of situation, difficult situations. It's usually civil societies, and well, to get the money in this case to support a problem that is not recognized, well, it's something that is really, really difficult, and it expands, as you mentioned, all around the world. I want to mention to the people in the audience, remember that if you want to ask some questions, if you want to make some comments, the chat is available, so you will find your comments down here. And also, I want to mention that if you go to onetaxiride.com, we have the version in English and Spanish, so don't worry. Tenemos la versión en inglés y en español, así que no se preocupen. If you go, obviously you will find information about the film, the trailer that we were looking at some of the information in there. But also, if you go at the very bottom of the page, you will find several resources that actually help to understand a little bit more about this sort of problem. One question, and this can be either for you, Mac, or Roman. For this information and the research behind this project, what kind of help did you get? You got help from a specific institution, or it was pretty much everything done by yourself? So how was that?
Maybe I'll take this one, Roman.
Yeah.
When we started, I was very aware that it is a very delicate project, delicate in terms of dealing with Eric and his family. And it was delicate for me as well. I needed to prepare myself so that I will not harm Eric in any way while making this film. I remember reaching out to Roman and some of the friends I've made in the film community in Mexico to try to find an organization in Mexico who can help me, because I think that's the best place, because Eric's from here and the film is shot in Mexico. But I remember we couldn't find any organizations that help men who are male victims. And I reached out to organizations that help female survivors. And they literally told me that we can't help you because we only have the resources to help women. That's very unfortunate. So I had to look beyond Mexico, beyond Latin America, and I found a contact in London. So she is a professor who specializes in male rape. She works with the London Police. She understands her shortcomings, not being from Latin America and knowing the culture well enough to be the perfect consultation person. But she agreed to come on board, and she has been preparing me, working with me over the last few years to make sure that Eric is not further traumatized by the filming, and that myself personally, that I am not suffering from vicarious depression, which is a form of depression where you get depression by being very close to someone with depression. So yeah, that has been a very, very important help in this process.
All right, and as you mentioned, if we were looking at the page, as I mentioned, if you go all the way down, we have different resources, and exactly what you mentioned, I was looking like. I don't want a specific institution that says, okay, this is perhaps for these kind of situations and that will help. But you can look at the names. And for example, we have the Rape Crisis England and Wales page, the Survivors, okay, Survivors Manchester. But most of the links, at least in this particular case, are not related. In the case of the United States, okay, we have the Male Survivor. And the focus of this, as I am just reading in here, it's really related to the topic of this film in this case. And it says, Male Survivor helps men who have been sexually abused, assaulted, or raped. That's all we do. We are here for men 24/7, 365 through our moderated discussion boards. So it's one of the few resources that are actually paying attention to this topic. But it's really hard to and difficult to find these places, and well, it should be even harder if one is if one have been involved, have been attacked. Where are you going to look for information? Yes, perhaps we can Google it, but then you will feel pretty much like even more lonely. One question with you, Roman, and then we go back with you, Mac. Roman, I was really glad when it was finally announced, in this case for the Festival Internacional de Cine en Guadalajara, that this was going to be shown. Actually, we have, guys, in case that you want to watch it, we already have a date. So March the 14th, el jueves 14 de marzo at 4:30 at 16:30, it will be shown in Cinemex Sania. You have all the information if you just Google that or go to the International Film Festival in Guadalajara page, and you see pretty much the times, the length obviously of the film, and where you can watch it. Roman, when you found out that the film was accepted in this case for the festival, how do you felt, especially since this was one of those topics that are kind of obscured?
I was really excited, and it's not something that was a lot surprising in that in because we actually pursue the, like, we wanted to send it to Maguey because that was the perfect platform, because Maguey is one of the most important, if not the most important, LGBT festival, or at least a program within the Guadalajara Film Festival, that and it has a lot of support and a lot of organizations. Like, something I spoke with Mac during this process for the film right now, the festival, going to festivals, is that I really want the film to be supported more than just seen by the people. I mean, obviously we want it to be seen by everybody, but I really wanted to have a lot of support from organizations that can actually help us out and just take the film further than just having it like a normal route, commercial route. So that we are really interested in having it in Maguey, because Maguey, there's a lot of support for the LGBT films, and actually, I'm actually excited and a little bit nervous for that audience to watch the film and their reactions, because the previews that we've been showing, like the previous cut of the film, our little screenings we had were really emotional. So I'm really hoping that we're gonna have that same kind of emotion when we're showing in Guadalajara, but I'm not sure how they're gonna react to it. So it's kind of exciting, but I think that's the perfect way to start, to have the world premiere in Maguey.
All right, and also just to let know the audience, I have to do a shameless plug, so sorry about it. We have for the previous festival, we had an interview with pretty much one of the heads of this occasion, with Pepe Ruilova. Pepe, un saludo, un abrazo, carnal. And we're really glad that, as Roman mentioned, it's in this section, because it's really focused on an area that it's perhaps not more vulnerable, but where you can find these kind of situations that are not spoken. And also when you watch the film, the people in the audience, when you get to watch the documentary, you will see part of the reaction actually. And Roman has a cameo at the end. I actually saw him somewhere in there, and I believe that was from one of the first screenings, right?
Yes, we had 3 screenings. We had one in Querétaro, one in Guadalajara actually, and one in Mexico City. So that was like basically in the film, that's like the epilogue for the story, like where the film took about a little bit over 3 years, almost 4 years in the filming. So that was a little bit like just closing out the whole arc for Eric's story. So we were really, really excited for it. So, but you can see me there, and that particular showing in Mexico City was the first time the whole family watched the film. So in this case, we were very nervous of having everybody from the family see it, and the Q&A that we had afterwards was incredibly emotional. So yeah, it's quite like it's been hitting a nerve with people, and actually we had it in what was the name, Mac, of the place that we actually showed it in Mexico City? It was like this bar.
Bajos Circuito.
Yeah. So we even had like people participating from the staff of the bar. So we even had like a waiter commenting on the film, saying that he didn't, like, he was unaware that men had that like issue of being raped, and that he was actually like opening his eyes to a problem that he didn't even know could happen. So that was like the perfect reaction we wanted from someone who was completely unaware of the issue. So if they can become aware of a problem, that it's not just a female problem, it's not even a gay problem, it could happen to anybody. So that's what makes us really excited, that the film is actually touching like a nerve on people.
Yeah, and Mac, we're going now with you. Um, um, what did change in your perspective when you were making this film? And sorry if I am assuming that something changed in you, but tackling this topic, I believe that it's really difficult. You get involved really close with the people that are being part of this, and to be quite honest, I don't believe that you can go before this project and after this project being the same person. So, did something change in you, and if so, what was it?
Yeah, I mean, Dan, you hit the nail on its head. I am a different person because of this film, and I think sometimes filmmakers, obviously, we are all changed by the stories that we tell, but this is the first film that has truly changed the way I look at the world. I'm from Singapore, and we are known very well around the world for being very efficient, for great in mathematics and science. Um, I always grew up thinking, if there is a problem, no matter how big, if we have the right resources and the right amount of time, we can fix it. And Eric taught me a lot about what life is and what going through very difficult situations mean. There's not always a way to fix it, to make it okay again. And sometimes we try different ways to do it, and sometimes we succeed and sometimes we don't. But I've learned that being the best help sometimes is just to listen, not to offer advice, not to think that you can somehow find a way for them or for yourself. And sometimes you just have to listen and hope that the world listens as well, and that maybe the right person who hears your story or hears Eric's story can come in with the right form of help that someone needs. I'm sorry if I'm not making sense. I mean, I'm just trying to say that there isn't a way to fix things always, and sometimes life is hard and people find their way to work around the problem and not necessarily to fix the problem. And that to me is inspirational. Not necessarily that a survivor manages to overcome a situation or becomes an activist. Very naively, I started out making this film thinking, wow, how amazing would it be if the protagonist of the film, Eric, goes through a really dark time but emerges as a phoenix, rising above the ashes and becoming an emblem, a symbol of being a survivor for other people out there. But then I realized that that's in the movies. Obviously, some survivors manage to do that. But I think that the true beauty and the true inspiration behind Eric's story is that he manages to go on. He just manages to be the best that he can, given what he has, and being a survivor, living. And that to me is the real takeaway I have from making this film that has truly changed what I think about life. Yeah.
Excellent. And while we're talking about change, there's also something that if you're in the audience right now, if you're watching this after the film was shown, if you're watching these previews, well, it doesn't matter when. There's also one thing that we want to mention about this. If you go to the main page of the documentary, onetaxiride.com, you will find at the very top, at the very beginning of the main page, one link that it says help us, ayúdanos, and it's going to send you to one petition in change.org. I usually am the kind of person who says that the petitions in change.org they don't change anything, but in this particular case, I want to believe that it can be something different, especially because it helps to realize that this is a problem that is not perhaps only for one part of the population, and it affects the people that we know. It might affect pretty much more people that we actually realize are being affected about this. So one of the things is that first we have to know that there is a problem, and then we have to know and understand that it's not a problem that affects perhaps one person or one specific target population, but it can be with even more people that we realize. So in this case, if you go to the change.org link, it's pretty much, it doesn't take much time. You pretty much just say, why are you signing the petition, and then you send it. It will be count with the rest of the people who have been supporting this cause, and you will find pretty much all the information that we have been discussing. But there's a specific goal, and pretty much I believe that it's awareness of this topic, because right now we are also living in a time when we want to be more inclusive. and it can relate in characters for fiction. Right now there is a lot of buzz because we will have the first female superhero in the Marvel universe in a solo movie. Okay, that's really great, but we have to be inclusive and realize that as we want to talk about fun topics like that movie, we have to realize that we are all in this world and we are part of the population and we all have different problems and we're part of this, even if not directly. At least we can help, and the first step that we can take to this is realize that there is a problem, and after that, well, watch the documentary, but also offer support in different aspects. As I mentioned, you can find it in there. Also, in the page, in One Taxi Ride, you will find different links, in this case, to the social networks where you are, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter mainly. So there you have all the information. Getting back to the movie, Roman, you mentioned that, for example, this was being shown in some places in Documenta, and also Mac mentioned in some places in Mexico City. So what do you think, Roman, that are the next steps for this documentary? Obviously, I believe that you are looking and knocking doors pretty much in all the festivals, in as many festivals as possible. But what do you think will be also some of the next steps? Will be also available in different places, or, well, I don't know. Is there a plan map for the film?
Yes, actually, the first step right now is festivals. As you said, we're just knocking doors. We just want it to be shown everywhere. I'm really, really interested in starting out in Mexico, like go to every big festival in Mexico and see if we can actually screen it from the biggest festivals like Guadalajara or Morelia to even smaller festivals. I think that we had like festivalitis in Mexico, so there's a festival everywhere. So just for the film to be shown everywhere we can, and then actually I'm interested in taking it internationally, and especially in Latin America, because it's such an issue that's not just for Mexico, but I think it's an issue in Latin America as well, that basically we share a lot with Latin America and Mexico. So yes, after that, the whole idea is also to actually, once we have like strong attachments or like vinculaciones, basically, that we actually can show it in schools, we can show it in organizations, we can show it with private screenings with victims. The whole idea for the film is to actually create like a hub for survivors. So we want to actually have stories from other victims, so they can actually, having social media, having that, the website, even having the change.org, which I'm also, like you, very cynical about the change.org. I really do think that most of them don't actually do anything. But in this case, I think it's a tool for awareness that actually can help us to create visibility, basically, for the documentary. And after we have that, I would love for the film to continue a life beyond what you'd expect from just having the documentary that's shown. Maybe some festivals, having it in very local venues, having it in the Cineteca, and that's it. Like, we wanted to have continue life within the educational sector and the health sector as well. So we're just preparing for it, but we really need the support from people and organizations like NGOs, basically, as well. And I would love for the film to actually have a life like Hasta los Dientes had in Mexico, that actually Ambulante screened it for the Senado, and they actually had the support from politicians and government. And if they saw our film and actually made some change, actually helped out with some sort of victim assistance, that actually would make the whole project worth it. So that's the thing that we want to accomplish with the film, basically.
Excellent. And you're looking at the main poster. So actually, if you saw that in cinetecas, film houses, film clubs, just have it in mind. It's really easy to recognize. So you will be in the right place if it's showing in a theater near you. Mac, going back with you, I want to be perhaps a little bit more optimistic. I want to switch a little bit the topic. Hopefully you will help me with that. But
yes.
The film was done. It's starting its release on film festivals in this case. Have you keep in touch with the people involved in this project, mainly with obviously the main characters, as if this was a fiction, but the documentary is usually a little bit more tricky than the fiction because you are dealing with real people, but you are showing different situations. So have you been having have you kept in touch with the people involved, and if they have what kind of reception they had about the end result in this film?
Dan, I'm just gonna make you repeat the last bit. So have I been in touch with
All right.
Family? And the second part of the question was?
Sorry, no, and your audio was cutting a little bit, but then it just realized it.
Sure.
The question pretty much is if you have been in touch with the family, and what was the reception that they had for the film, in case that they have already watched it. That I know that they watch one of the first screening.
Yeah. So I mean the family is my Mexican family. This film is possible because they welcome me into their family. And the relationships that I have with every one of them, you know, from Elena, the mom, Eric, of course, and his three brothers, his sister-in-law. I mean, I do feel that, ¿cómo se dice? Tengo un cariño profundo with them that I cannot explain. We are connected by the experience of making this film. And they will always be in my life. Hopefully, I've always been in theirs. And they have, you know, they have seen a rough cut of the film, but they haven't seen the final cut. And they're all waiting to watch it at a premiere. When they saw the rough cut, they were all extremely, I can't find the word to describe. I mean, obviously, they were moved, but I think for them, it's a very weird experience to see your life story play out on screen, and that you learn things about what your mother said that you never knew. You learn things about what your brother said that you never knew. And so I think more than watching themselves, they are also learning about each other in the family. So it was a very profound experience for them. I don't think they have fully grasped the experience yet. I think when the film eventually comes out and they watch it, I think that's when I'll truly really know what they think. But they have been very, very kind and supportive. And, you know, most families would have, at least in Singapore, you know, a Chinese family would be like, you know, we do not air the dirty laundry of a family, you know, to the world. We keep it behind closed doors. But the fact that Eric's family was so open to being vulnerable, being so open to being criticized for the sake of helping other survivors and their families out there. To me, that's really incredible.
Excellent. And hopefully they will, after they watch the final cut of the film, they will just pretty much just be delighted. Not for the story that they are telling, but for the fact that they have some sort of resolution by confronting this situation, obviously learning about this, but knowing that also is something being done with a difficult situation, a complicated and horrible situation, but there's something that can flourish from here to help more people. Okay? So I guess that we're pretty much going to end the show. But before doing that, well, as I mentioned, remember, guys, people in the audience, that you can pretty much find all the information for this film in one taxi ride. There are versions in English and Spanish, and perhaps some final words that you want to tell to the audience. First, Mac, and then Román.
Román, do you want to go first?
Sorry, first Román.
Yeah, I'll go first. I just first of all, just to invite the people first to the world premiere. That's actually on the 13th. It's going to be Wednesday 13th of this month at the Cineteca, the second Sala 2, Cineteca FICG 2 at 7:15. And then on Thursday, the 14th, the next day, we're going to have it, as you mentioned, Dan, at the Cinemexania 6 at 4:30. So that would be, first of all, the invitation for people to actually join us. But what I would like to say actually is just that the film for me as well has been an experience. I mean, obviously I wasn't there. I didn't make the connection that Mac did with the family, but I met them, and you could tell that just within seconds of meeting them, like they were a special family. So I'm so excited that Mac was able to actually make a film that's so personal and so intimate, because I don't know. I mentioned this to Mac a lot. It's like years that he basically had like jackpot with this family, because if we wanted to make a film tackling male rape and just looking for someone who's actually wanting to share the story, we couldn't do it in the way that actually the Eric's family and Eric himself opened to the film. And when you watch the film, it's not really like one of those documentaries where there's like talking heads and they tell you how to feel and they give you stats and everything is just like, oh yeah, this is the problem, here's the numbers. No, it's more of a personal journey of a real story. There's parts of it that I actually think that you forget that there's like a camera there. You're just watching. There's like this voyeur kind of element to the film, which is actually making you feel closer to the family instead of just having this random people telling you about an issue. So I'm really excited for people to see it. And yeah, that's everything I want to say.
All right, and Mac, do you have some final words or?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Dan, for having us. We are very excited. This is our very first media interview. And secondly, I just want to say to everyone who is starting to learn about the film, to think about what we're trying to say and give it a chance, because it's like telling people, 10,000 years ago that the world is round. It's so impossibly difficult to comprehend if you do not have the resources. But the world is round, and everyone here, well, most people still believe that. And if you can get past that initial prejudice that it just doesn't happen and give it a chance, maybe the film can change your mind, and hopefully it changes a mind at a time, and the world would start to be ready to hear these stories.
All right, so
Yeah,
there you have it, guys. And with that, pretty much we are set and done with this interview. Mac, Roman, thank you very much for being part. Thank you very much for your time, for sharing these stories and allowing us to tell the people about this. Because, for example, sometimes we have interviews after we have already watched the film in festivals, in regular exhibition. In this case, I had the opportunity to watch it beforehand, so we can actually tell the people where to watch it, so they can be ready, and they don't have the problem like, well, now that I want to watch it, where can I get it? You have the first warning, guys. So for that, I thank you very much, Mac and Roman. For your time, and for being part of this is episode 100 of the Palomazos, which are the interviews that we have with the people behind and in front of the camera in film related topics. So thank you very much for your participation in here, and thank you very much for everybody who is watching this back at home. And I have one final announcement to do just right before we close the show. And I have been telling this a little bit via Twitter, and it's that we as part of the celebration of the 100 episodes of the Palomazos, remember that we have a lot of sections, so we're pretty much like in the episode 1000 if we put all together. But we're going to release one section in the Patreon page where you can support this. That it's actually about one new section. We have the producers in there, but the new one, I'm going to read the description because I really like it. It's going to be in Spanish, so sorry about that, Mac. And the new tier that we are opening, it's Me Pongo la Camiseta, donde básicamente sabemos que ustedes son personas que les gusta el cine, que apoyan este proyecto y que pues les vamos a dar algo que nos han estado pidiendo. We're going to release something that they have been asking me for a long time. And what the hell I'm talking about? Let me just flip the camera right now so it actually makes a little bit of sense in this case. I believe that I am flipped somewhere around there. and it's that I'm going to release my very own fake t-shirts from Film Festival. The first design that we're having in here is for the TIFF Torrento International Film Festival. So if you want one of these cheers, the way that you can get it is pretty much just helping us in that tire. And actually, one of the people, some of the people are already getting these t-shirts, even though they are not perhaps participating in this, but they have been supporting the show for a long time. So that's part of the celebration. You are going to get some goodies if you are one of the executive producers. If you are part of the co-producers, please get in touch with me. Send me the information of where can I send you a t-shirt, and you will get it. And if you want to participate in this, we have one new tire, or you have to be one of the people that have been supporting us for a long time. Okay, so with that in mind, once again, Mac, Román, thank you very much for your time. It was a real pleasure talking with you guys.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, and thanks to you who are behind the screen watching this, and see you in the next show. Well, we're going to be covering the Guadalajara Film Festival in the following week, and after that, we perhaps might not be talking with someone from Singapore, but we're going to be talking with someone from Finland to talk about storytelling on video games. So stay in touch, because the show is going to be outstanding, as it has always been. Thank you very much, and here are the credits.